Last week, I wrote about the difficult struggle of a climb I had atop Mount Ugu some 20 years ago. The support of what I call my own little cloud of witnesses, that is the friends who goaded me on to continue on climbing despite my queasy stomach, kept me going until we all safely made it to our destination, where we were able to celebrate Mass. One thing beautiful about trekking up heights is the difference that is made when one keeps the goal in sight, when one sees the ultimate destination in the looming but beckoning distance. The sight of the summit, as much forbidding as inviting, keeps one focused on the goal. The view of one's destination, though seemingly unreachable, keeps one pining for more, walking some more, putting in just a little bit more effort each time, at least to put one foot before the other, one step at a time, as the old song goes. The big difference is made by one's ability to keep the goal in sight, both physically and figuratively. One gains strength by merely focusing on the ultimate goal. This happened to me the first time I climbed Mount Canlaon in Negros Island in southern Philippines, many more years ago. The smoldering smoking crater that sharply jutted out of the relative flatness of Margaha Valley was something one saw for a long, long while as one inched his or her way toward the smoke-smothered summit. Our readings today continue the theme of difficulty taken up last week, if you remember. But this Sunday, the focus is on one having the strength to face that very difficulty. Where last week we read that Jeremiah suffered and paid a very high price for his prophetic criticizing and for preaching the truth, this Sunday we get a glimpse of the hopeful imagination of Isaiah and his prophetic energizing as he speaks of a vision of a great ingathering of peoples from all corners of the world. What Isaiah sees, his vision, his reporting in God's name of God's dream, is what energized not only him but the people he was and still is speaking to up until now. Strength comes from what one sees. When one has a vision of what's coming up ahead, one gets the necessary push to go on. The ability to face difficulties has to do a lot with what one sees and where one is going to. The letter to the Hebrews from the second reading takes up the same thematic, as it reframes the issue of suffering as discipline that comes from God Himself. Discipline of all kinds is ordinary cause for pain, not joy, and you know this. But in the same breath, the letter declares that later it brings the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who are trained by it. Whether it will all turn out for joy or pain depends a whole lot on how one sees it all. It is all a matter of vision. Again, I have it on the authority of schema therapists, being a counselor myself, that many of our problems can be attributed to what they call false schemas. Now that's a $64 word. Let's make it simpler. They're simply called cognitive distortions. What one sees is what one gets. False beliefs, false actions. False belief systems that remain embedded in one's psyche dictate one's feelings, and both cognition and emotion then influence greatly what one does. Cognition, emotion, action. Healing, according to the same therapists, could only take place when one heals one's sight and makes one capable once more of seeing wholes and not disparate parts. We all have the tendency to see the pain, but never the gain, that can accrue from it. We all can very easily look at life as represented by a narrow door that the gospel speaks about today. We can get so focused on the reality of the narrow door that we fail to notice the other side of that narrow door, a path that leads straight to glory, a straight road that leads direct to God. I have reported to my readers on several occasions my recent experience of deep pain and personal suffering. I'm not going to repeat it here. Don't you worry. One in pain is hurting in many more senses than just one. One can feel abandoned, rejected, unwanted, uncared for, rightly or wrongly. But the deepest hurt takes place in one's ability to see rightly. One's tears can truly cover one's eyesight, literally and figuratively, on the one hand. But on the other hand, these same tears could become what one author calls the telescopes by which we can see far into heaven. As one writer said many years ago, again, it is all a matter of vision. What then would offer us the strength to be able to enter through the gospel's narrow door? What would it take us to gain strength to squeeze oneself through our own cistern, experiences of rejection and personal suffering? The readings today seem to offer us a clear answer. They counsel us to change eyeglasses, to change the way we look at things. Change your eyeglasses to see beyond and see things that most people do not see, do not want to see, or cannot see for one reason or another. They tell us to see rightly, to see more, not less, given the eyes of faith that have been given us as gift. Superstitious Roman pagans of old can teach us a lesson or two. Believing in fate, F-A-T-E, and the positioning of stars in the pseudo-science of astrology, they found solace and strength in the stars up in the firmament. Robur ab astris, they would say, strength from the stars. Ironically enough, this is exactly what I suggest the readings tell us today. Robur ab astris. They all counsel us to see more, not less. Pain is not mere earthly suffering. Pain is reframed by God's word as discipline, as a stepping stone towards greatness and holiness. So, strengthen your drooping hands and your weak knees. Make straight paths for your feet, that what is lame may not be disjointed, but healed. Now that, friends, is from the letter to the Hebrews. Second reading. The star of our faith is worth giving a second look to. It helps us see the whole instead of parts. The whole does not consist of that narrow door alone, but what lies behind that narrow door. But we need eyes to see. We need to set our sights on the goal. What or who then is our goal? No less than the Lord, who reproves us because He loves us. Who, on account of that same love, disciplines us, and who scourges every son or daughter He acknowledges. What sort of stars do you see? And this, my dear friends, is your Kalakbay at Katoto in this week's episode of Puso sa Puso, saying, God bless you and have a pleasant Sunday and week.